Why does the one who claims to love you the most sometimes act like you don't even exist? Why does someone who's supposed to care deeply about you suddenly turn cold, distant, or even outright ignore you? It's one of the most confusing and painful situations we face in relationships. You've opened up to them, shared your vulnerabilities, and placed your trust in them, only to be met with silence, avoidance, or indifference. It's almost like the more you care, the less they seem to notice. Think back to a time when you felt this way, when someone's silence or emotional distance left you questioning everything. Maybe it was a romantic partner who stopped texting back when you needed reassurance. Maybe it was a friend who brushed off your attempts to connect, or a family member who seemed uninterested in your struggles. Whatever the situation, it left a mark, didn't it? It made you second-guess their feelings, their intentions, and even your own worth. And the worst part? You probably replayed those moments in your mind over and over, trying to figure out what you did wrong. But here's the thing: the reasons behind someone's behavior aren't always as simple as they seem. It's not always about you. Often their actions, or lack of them, are deeply rooted in their own psychology, their fears, and their unresolved emotional struggles. Their silence might be saying more about their inner world than it does about your worth. Let's pause here and acknowledge how confusing this can feel. On the one hand, they've shown you love, care, and attention. You've seen glimpses of their heart, moments where they've been everything you've needed. On the other hand, their coldness, withdrawal, or lack of effort can feel like a betrayal of everything they've shown you before. How do you reconcile these two versions of the same person? And more importantly, how do you protect your own peace and self-worth in the midst of their emotional turbulence? Today, we're going to dive deep into the psychology behind this behavior, from the wisdom of Stoicism, which teaches us emotional resilience and how to detach from what we can't control, to the insights of dark psychology, which exposes the hidden motives behind human behavior. We'll uncover why someone who loves you deeply might act like they don't care at all. By understanding these patterns, you'll gain the clarity and strength to navigate these situations with confidence and composure. But before we go any further, let's take a moment. Have you ever experienced a situation where someone you cared about deeply seemed to pull away or ignore you? How did it make you feel, and how did you handle it? Share your thoughts in the comments. It could be an empowering insight for someone else going through the same thing. And if you're ready to stop second-guessing yourself and start understanding the hidden dynamics of human behavior, make sure to like this video. When you like and engage, you're not just supporting this channel, you're also joining a community of people who are committed to growing stronger, wiser, and more grounded. Let's keep going. Have you ever heard the phrase, "You can't control how others treat you, only how you respond"? This is one of the cornerstones of Stoic philosophy, and it's crucial for understanding why someone who loves you might also ignore you. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what is within our control, our own thoughts, actions, and emotions, while letting go of what we cannot control, like the behaviors or reactions of others. Now, let's apply this to love. Love, by its nature, is vulnerable. It opens us up to another person's actions, feelings, and flaws. When someone you care about ignores you or withdraws, your instinct might be to take it personally. You might wonder, what did I do wrong? Why aren't I enough for them? But here's the Stoic truth. Their behavior is not about you, it's a reflection of their own inner world. Think about it. How often do we misinterpret someone's actions because we filter them through our own emotions? If someone ignores you, it's easy to assume they're doing it to hurt you or because they don't care. But Stoicism challenges us to pause and ask, what else could this mean? Could their withdrawal stem from fear, insecurity, or struggles that have nothing to do with me. Now, this isn't about excusing bad behavior or tolerating neglect. Stoicism doesn't ask us to be passive. It asks us to be intentional. If someone's actions are hurting you, it's your responsibility to protect your peace. But by understanding that their behavior is often rooted in their own issues, not your shortcomings, you free yourself from unnecessary self-blame. Here's a powerful way to reframe it. Imagine someone you love deeply. Think about how much you want the best for them, even if you're going through your own struggles. Now, imagine pulling away, not because you love them less, but because your own fears or doubts are clouding your ability to connect. This doesn't justify ignoring someone, but it does highlight an important point. Their behavior isn't always a reflection of their love. It's often a reflection of their fears. The Stoics believed that detachment is not about distancing yourself from others. It's about distancing yourself from the need to control them. It's about recognizing that love is a gift, not a transaction. When you detach from the expectation that someone must behave a certain way to prove their love, you free yourself from disappointment and reclaim your inner peace. But let's take it deeper. What do you do when someone you care about ignores you? How do you respond without losing your sense of self? This is where the wisdom of Stoicism shines. Instead of reacting impulsively, sending that angry text, demanding an explanation, or doubting your worth, pause, reflect. Ask yourself, what is within my control right now? Your response matters more than their action. By focusing on your own peace and clarity, you shift the dynamic. You're no longer at the mercy of their behavior. You're grounded in your own values. Here's my question for you. How can you apply this Stoic principle of control and detachment in your relationships? Share your thoughts in the comments. Maybe it's about giving yourself space to reflect before reacting. Or maybe it's about focusing on your own growth instead of seeking answers from someone else. Whatever it is, your insights could inspire someone else. And if this perspective is already giving you clarity, hit that like button. It not only supports this channel, but also tells the world that you're choosing to approach love and relationships with wisdom and strength. Let's keep uncovering the psychology behind love and distance. Have you ever wondered why someone who loves you might pull away just when things seem to be going well? The answer often lies in something hidden deep within human psychology: attachment styles. These are patterns of behavior formed in childhood that shape how we connect, love, and even withdraw in relationships. Understanding this can shine a light on why the one who loves you the most might also seem to ignore you the most. Psychologists identify three main attachment styles: secure, anxious, and avoidant. Let's focus on the avoidant style because it holds the key to this paradoxical behavior. People with avoidant attachment crave love and connection like anyone else, but they also fear the vulnerability it requires. This fear often leads to a push and pull dynamic. They get close, feel the intensity of love, and then retreat to protect themselves from the perceived risks of rejection, dependence, or emotional pain. Now, imagine you're on the receiving end of this. You're left confused and hurt, thinking, how can they say they love me, but act like this? It feels personal, but here's the truth. It's not about you. Avoidant behavior is rooted in their internal conflict, a struggle between their desire for closeness and their fear of losing control or being hurt. Let me paint a picture for you. Picture someone who grew up in an environment where expressing emotions wasn't safe or valued. Maybe they were taught, explicitly or implicitly, that vulnerability was a weakness. Fast forward to adulthood, and they've fallen in love with you. They care deeply, but the very act of loving you triggers a lifetime of fears. They start to pull away, not because they don't care, but because they're overwhelmed by the emotions they've been taught to suppress. This is where dark psychology comes into play. The human mind is a maze of defense mechanisms, many of which operate subconsciously. Avoidant individuals may use emotional distance as a way to feel in control. It's their mind's way of saying, if I don't get too close, I won't get hurt. It's self-protection, but at a cost to them and to you. Now let's be clear. Understanding this doesn't mean excusing hurtful behavior. If someone's avoidant tendencies are causing you pain, it's essential to set boundaries that protect your well-being. But having this insight allows you to approach the situation with compassion rather than frustration. Instead of internalizing their withdrawal as a reflection of your worth, you can see it for what it is, their inner struggle. So, how do you navigate this? First, ask yourself a critical question. Am I willing to work with this dynamic? If the person is self-aware and willing to grow, there's potential for the relationship to strengthen. But if their behavior consistently leaves you feeling devalued or ignored, it might be time to prioritize your own peace. Here's where Stoicism comes in again. The Stoics teach us that we can't control others, but we can control how we interpret their actions. Instead of seeing their distance as a rejection, view it as a mirror of their own fears. This shift in perspective doesn't make their behavior okay, but it does help you regain your power and emotional clarity. Now, let's bring this back to you. Have you ever been in a relationship where someone's avoidant tendencies left you feeling confused or unworthy? How did you handle it, and what did you learn about yourself in the process? Share your experience in the comments. Your story could provide the clarity someone else needs. And if this insight is helping you see your relationships in a new light, don't forget to like this video. By engaging, you're not just supporting Stoic Blessing, you're joining a community committed to growing stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Let's keep going. We're just getting started. Have you ever noticed how, after a deeply intimate moment, some people seem to retreat? Maybe it was a heartfelt conversation, a gesture of love, or a moment of raw vulnerability. And then, almost like clockwork, they pull away, emotionally or physically. It feels like a contradiction, doesn't it? Why would someone who seems so connected suddenly shut down? The answer lies in one of the most complex and fascinating aspects of human behavior, the fear of vulnerability. Let's unpack this. Love and intimacy require us to be seen, not just the polished, perfect parts of ourselves, but also the messy, insecure, and fragile parts. For many, this level of openness is exhilarating. For others, it's terrifying. Vulnerability feels like handing over the keys to your emotional safety, trusting that the other person won't misuse them. And for those who fear being hurt, rejected, or abandoned, this trust can feel like too much to bear. Here's where dark psychology sheds light on this behavior. When someone is deeply in love, they might feel an overwhelming sense of emotional exposure. To them, closeness equals risk. The risk of losing you, of being rejected, or of not being enough. Their response? Retreat. By creating distance, they feel they're regaining control over their emotions and protecting themselves from potential pain. But here's the catch. This retreat often has nothing to do with how much they love you. In fact, it's often because they care so much that they feel this fear. It's not love they're pulling away from, it's the vulnerability that comes with it. Picture this. A person grows up in an environment where showing emotion was a liability. Maybe they were told to toughen up, that feelings made them weak, or that love always came with strings attached. Fast forward to now, they're in a relationship with you. They love you deeply, but every time they open their heart, those old fears creep back in, whispering, "Don't let them get too close. What if you lose this? So they pull away, not because they don't care, but because caring scares them. Here's where Stoic wisdom can empower you. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This applies perfectly here. You can't control someone else's fear of vulnerability, but you can control how you respond to it. Instead of chasing after them, trying to fix their fears, or questioning your worth, focus on staying grounded in your own sense of value. Now, let's address the million-dollar question. What do you do when someone you love retreats after a moment of closeness? First, resist the urge to overanalyze or take it personally. Their behavior is more about their inner world than it is about you. Second, give them space. Sometimes allowing someone the room to process their emotions can help them come back stronger. Finally, communicate. When the moment feels right, express how their withdrawal affects you. Not in an accusatory way, but from a place of honesty and self-respect. For example, you might say, "I've noticed that after we share something meaningful, you seem to pull away. I care about you and want to understand how we can navigate this together." This approach opens the door to understanding without placing blame. Now, let's hear from you. Have you ever noticed someone retreating emotionally after a moment of closeness? How did you handle it, and what did you learn about yourself in the process? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might resonate with someone who's navigating the same challenge. And if this perspective is helping you see these dynamics more clearly, take a moment to like this video. It's a small act, but it supports Stoic blessing and builds a community of people committed to emotional growth and resilience. Let's keep going. The journey's just getting started. Love is often described as a partnership, a meeting of equals. But let's be honest, relationships aren't always balanced. Sometimes there's a subtle, unspoken power dynamic at play, and one of the most effective ways people maintain control, consciously or not, is by creating distance. When someone you love ignores you, pulls away, or withholds attention, it can feel like they're holding all the power. But is that really what's happening? Let's explore this through the lens of dark psychology and human behavior. At its core, love is vulnerable. It requires trust, openness, and a willingness to relinquish control. For some, this vulnerability feels empowering. It deepens the bond. But for others, it feels like a loss of control, and that's where the dynamic shifts. Ignoring someone, withdrawing, or creating emotional distance becomes a way to regain a sense of power. It's their way of saying, "I'm not too dependent on this. I can still protect myself." Here's the paradox. The more they love you, the more they might feel the need to create this distance. It's not because they don't care. It's because they care so much that they fear losing themselves, losing you, or losing the control they think keeps them safe. But what about manipulation? Sometimes, emotional distance isn't just about fear. It's about power. People who feel insecure or unsure in relationships might use ignoring or pulling away as a strategy to test your reaction. Will you chase after them? Will you question your own worth? Will you fight for their attention? For them, your reaction confirms their importance, feeding their ego while leaving you in a place of uncertainty. This is where understanding dark psychology becomes crucial. While fear-driven distance often stems from inner turmoil, manipulative behavior is intentional. It's about control, keeping you on edge, doubting yourself, and overcompensating to regain their attention. Recognizing the difference is key to protecting yourself. Now, let's bring in Stoicism. The Stoics teach us that true power lies in self-control, not in controlling others. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." When someone creates distance in a relationship, whether from fear or manipulation, Your power lies in how you choose to respond. Do you let their behavior dictate your emotions, or do you stay grounded in your own worth? If someone's creating distance, resist the urge to chase after them or fix the situation. Instead, focus on maintaining your own emotional balance. Ask yourself, is this distance a reflection of their own struggles, or is it a deliberate act of manipulation? If it's fear-driven, communicate with empathy and honesty. If it's manipulative, set boundaries that protect your peace. Here's a practical strategy. When you feel ignored, take a step back instead of stepping forward. Give yourself the space to reflect on what's really happening. Then, decide how to engage, if at all, from a place of clarity and strength. Let me ask you, have you ever experienced a power dynamic in a relationship where someone used distance or withdrawal to control the situation? How did you respond, and what did you learn from it? Share your experience in the comments. It could inspire someone else to find their own strength in a similar situation. And if this insight is helping you understand the hidden dynamics in relationships, don't forget to like this video. It's a simple way to support Stoic Blessing and join a community dedicated to self-growth and emotional mastery. Let's keep going. There's more to uncover. Have you ever stopped to think that when someone pulls away, it might not have anything to do with you? The truth is, people's behavior often reflects their internal battles far more than it reflects their feelings about you. When someone you love ignores you, distances themselves, or acts unpredictably, it could be their inner turmoil playing out, not a reflection of your worth or value. Let's break this down. Many people carry unresolved trauma, insecurities, or emotional baggage that shapes how they respond to love and intimacy. Maybe they grew up in a household where affection was rare, inconsistent, or even conditional. Maybe they've experienced heartbreak or rejection that left scars. These experiences can create patterns, defense mechanisms they use to shield themselves from vulnerability. Now, think about how this plays out in a relationship. They love you, they care deeply about you, but the closer you get, the more it stirs up old fears. Thoughts like, what if I lose them? What if I'm not enough? What if they leave me first? Begin to surface. To quiet these fears, they do what feels safest. They retreat. They create distance, not because they don't love you, but because love itself triggers their unresolved pain. But here's the hard part for you. When they pull away, it feels personal. It feels like rejection. You might start wondering, what did I do wrong? Am I not enough? These thoughts can spiral, leading you to overanalyze, overcompensate, or even blame yourself. But here's the truth. Their inner turmoil is not your responsibility to fix, and it's certainly not your fault. This is where empathy and boundaries must coexist. Empathy allows you to see their struggle for what it is, a reflection of their inner world. But boundaries remind you that while you can care about their pain, you're not responsible for carrying it. Loving someone doesn't mean sacrificing your own peace to solve problems they're unwilling or unable to face. Now, let's bring in Stoicism. Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. When someone's inner turmoil manifests as emotional withdrawal or distance, your power lies in your response. Instead of internalizing their behavior, you can choose to detach emotionally, not from love, but from their reactions. This detachment allows you to maintain your peace while still showing compassion. Here's a practical way to navigate this. When someone's behavior feels confusing or hurtful, pause and ask yourself, is this about me, or is this about them? If it's about them, remind yourself that their pain doesn't define your worth. From this place of clarity, you can decide how to engage, whether it's offering support, setting a boundary, or giving them space to process their emotions. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been in a relationship where someone's inner struggles affected how they treated you? How did you handle it, and what did you learn about yourself in the process? Share your experience in the comments. Your story could provide clarity or comfort to someone else navigating a similar situation. And if this perspective resonates with you, take a moment to like this video. By engaging, you're not just supporting Stoic Blessing, you're joining a community that values growth, resilience, and understanding. Let's address a difficult but necessary truth. Not all emotional distance comes from fear or inner turmoil. Sometimes ignoring someone isn't about vulnerability, it's about manipulation. And when that's the case, it's critical to recognize the difference and protect yourself. Manipulation often begins subtly. Maybe they don't respond to your messages, but they leave you on read. Maybe they give you the silent treatment after an argument or withdraw affection without explanation. At first it might seem harmless, but over time it becomes a pattern, one designed to make you doubt yourself, chase their approval, or feel guilty for something you didn't even do. This is where dark psychology comes into play. Manipulators use tactics like silence, avoidance, or emotional withdrawal to gain control in a relationship. Why? Because when you're left guessing, when you're unsure of where you stand, you're more likely to overextend yourself to regain their attention or approval. For them, this isn't just about distance, it's about power. Let's be clear, emotional withdrawal doesn't always equal manipulation. Sometimes it's a coping mechanism or a reflection of their own struggles, but there are key signs to watch for when manipulation is at play. Do they ignore you to punish you after a disagreement? Do they withhold communication or affection to make you feel guilty or desperate for their attention? Do they consistently make you question your worth, your actions, or your sanity? If the answer is yes, you're likely dealing with manipulation, not vulnerability. Now, here's the good news. Recognizing manipulation is the first step to breaking free from it. And this is where Stoicism becomes your greatest ally. The Stoics taught us that while we can't control others, we have complete control over our reactions. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This means that even when someone uses silence or withdrawal to control you, you don't have to play their game. When you recognize manipulative behavior, the first step is to set a boundary. For example, if someone repeatedly gives you the silent treatment, you might say, "I value communication in our relationship, and I'm not comfortable with silence being used as a response to conflict. If this continues, I'll need to reconsider how we move forward." Notice how this statement is clear, firm, and grounded in self-respect. It doesn't attack them. It simply states your standard and the consequences of crossing it. But boundaries are only as strong as your commitment to enforce them. If they ignore your boundary and continue the behavior, it's time to reevaluate the relationship. Stoicism reminds us that walking away from something that no longer serves your peace is not weakness, it's wisdom. Now, let's hear from you. Have you ever experienced manipulative behavior disguised as emotional distance? How did you handle it, and what advice would you give to someone facing a similar situation? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your insights could help someone else recognize and escape a toxic dynamic. And if this perspective is helping you take back your power, don't forget to like this video. Engaging with this community is a powerful way to remind yourself and others that strength comes from self-awareness and resilience. When someone you love ignores you, distances themselves, or pulls away, it's natural to focus all your energy on figuring out why. What did you do wrong? What are they thinking? How can you fix it? These thoughts can consume you, leaving you drained and questioning your worth. But here's the truth. The more you chase answers from them, the further you drift from yourself. This is where self-control becomes your greatest tool. Let's take a step back and refocus. The Stoics believed that peace comes from focusing on what you can control, your own actions, emotions, and mindset, and letting go of what you cannot. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." When someone you care about creates emotional distance, you can't control their actions, but you can control how you respond. So, how do you turn the focus back on you? Start by pausing. When their silence or withdrawal feels overwhelming, resist the urge to react impulsively. Instead of sending a flurry of texts, overanalyzing their behavior, or bending over backward to win their attention, take a deep breath and ask yourself, what do I need right now? This simple question shifts the focus from their behavior to your well-being. Here's a powerful truth. Chasing after someone's attention only depletes your energy and erodes your self-worth. But when you choose to focus on yourself, on your growth, your peace, and your passions, you reclaim the power they seem to hold over you. This doesn't mean you stop caring about them. It means you start caring about yourself more. Let's talk about practical steps for self-control. First, create space for reflection. Instead of reacting to their distance, use the time to reconnect with yourself. What brings you joy? What goals have you been putting off? Shifting your energy towards self-improvement not only boosts your confidence, but also reminds you of your intrinsic value that doesn't depend on their attention. Second, set boundaries. If their behavior consistently leaves you feeling ignored or undervalued, it's okay to address it. Communicate your needs clearly and calmly. For example, you could say, "I've noticed that when we have conflicts you tend to withdraw, and it makes me feel disconnected. I value open communication, and I'd like us to work on addressing things together." This isn't about controlling them, it's about expressing what you need in a relationship. Finally, surround yourself with people and activities that uplift you. When one relationship feels shaky, it's tempting to pour all your energy into fixing it. But balance is key. Nurture other connections, pursue hobbies, and invest in experiences that bring you fulfillment. By creating a rich, full life, you remind yourself and them that your happiness doesn't hinge on their behavior. Now, let's make this personal. What's one way you can turn your focus back on yourself this week? Maybe it's dedicating an hour each day to a hobby you love. Maybe it's reaching out to a supportive friend. Or maybe it's simply taking time to journal and process your emotions. Share your commitment in the comments. It's a powerful way to hold yourself accountable and inspire others to do the same. And if this reminder to prioritize yourself resonates with you, take a moment to like this video. By doing so, you're not just supporting Stoic blessing, you're declaring to yourself and the world that your peace and self-worth matter. When someone you care about creates emotional distance, it's easy to feel confused, hurt, or even betrayed. But here's the question: how do you differentiate between someone who is struggling with their own fears and someone who genuinely doesn't care? How do you recognize love, even when it feels like it's hiding behind walls of silence or avoidance? Let's start with this. Love is not always loud. It doesn't always show up in grand gestures or constant affirmations. Sometimes love is subtle. It exists in the quiet moments, in the effort they put in, even if it's not as consistent or obvious as you'd like. But how do you tell the difference between genuine love and indifference? Signs of true love, even when they're distant. They come back. People who genuinely love you might pull away, but they return. Maybe they need space to process their emotions, but they value the connection enough to re-engage. It's not about the distance itself, it's about whether they're willing to bridge it. They show effort in other ways. Even if someone struggles to communicate or be emotionally present, love often reveals itself in actions. Do they check in on you, even if sporadically? Do they make an effort to support you in ways that feel meaningful to them, even if they're not perfect? These are signs that love exists, even if it's complicated. They respect your boundaries. Genuine love is rooted in respect. If you express a need or a boundary, do they listen and try to honor it? Someone who truly cares won't ignore your feelings or dismiss your concerns. They'll make an effort to meet you where you are. When the distance is a red flag. But let's also talk about the flip side. Emotional distance isn't always a sign of love. If someone's behavior consistently leaves you feeling undervalued, confused, or hurt without any effort to address the issue, it might be a sign that their love isn't as genuine as you deserve. Pay attention to patterns, not just moments. Love isn't about perfection, but it is about effort. The Stoic perspective. Love without attachment. Here's where Stoic philosophy offers clarity. The Stoics teach us that love is a gift, not a guarantee. Marcus Aurelius said, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart." This means loving freely, without expecting control or perfection from others. When you approach relationships with this mindset, you free yourself from the need to define someone's love by their every action. Instead, you focus on whether their presence adds value to your life as a whole. If it does, you can appreciate it without clinging. If it doesn't, you can let go with grace. Your power lies in observation. Instead of reacting emotionally to someone's distance, step back and observe. Are their actions consistent with someone who cares? Do they make an effort, even if it's imperfect? Or do they leave you feeling like you're always chasing after something they're unwilling to give? These observations will guide you to a clearer understanding of their intentions and your next steps. Engage with purpose. When you notice genuine love, even in the midst of distance, engage with it purposefully. Express your feelings honestly but without placing blame. For example, you might say, "I've noticed you've seemed distant lately, and I want to understand how you're feeling. I value our connection and want to support you if you're going through something." This approach creates space for dialogue without putting them on the defensive. But if you notice a lack of effort or respect, don't hesitate to reevaluate the relationship. Remember, your self-worth isn't tied to someone else's ability to show up for you. As Epictetus taught, the essence of philosophy is that a man should so live that his happiness shall depend as little as possible on external things. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever struggled to distinguish genuine love from emotional distance? What helped you gain clarity, and how did it change your perspective? Share your experience in the comments. It could offer someone else the insight they need. And if this section resonates with you, don't forget to like this video. It's a way to affirm that you're choosing clarity, resilience, and emotional growth over confusion and doubt. Let's move to the final part of this journey. We've traveled a long journey together, uncovering the hidden dynamics behind why the one who loves you the most might also ignore you the most. From the depths of human psychology to the wisdom of Stoicism, we've explored the fears, insecurities, and even manipulations that shape behavior in relationships. But here's the most important takeaway. Your peace doesn't depend on their actions. It depends on how you choose to respond. Love is complex. It's not always neat or easy to understand, but it should never leave you feeling unworthy or lost. If someone you care about pulls away, it's not your job to fix them, chase them, or sacrifice your well-being. Your responsibility is to yourself, to protect your peace, set boundaries, and nurture relationships that uplift you, not drain you. Let's take a moment to reflect. What have you learned about yourself through these situations? Maybe you've realized the importance of observing patterns instead of reacting emotionally. Maybe you've discovered that love doesn't always look how you expect it to, but that doesn't mean it's absent. Or maybe you've recognized the power of letting go when someone consistently disregards your needs. Here's my challenge for you. Take everything you've learned today and apply it to your relationships. If you're feeling ignored, pause and ask yourself, is this about me, or is this about them? If it's about them, release the weight of trying to control their behavior. If it's about you, take the opportunity to grow, set boundaries, and reconnect with your own values. Now, I want to hear from you. In the comments, share one empowering realization you've had about relationships or self-worth. For example, you might write, "I commit to prioritizing my peace above all else." Or, "I will no longer chase love. I will attract it by being true to myself." Your words could inspire someone else to reclaim their own power. Thank you for spending this time with me and for being part of the Stoic Empire. If this video resonated with you,